That's what God's saying to us. He's encouraging us. And he's saying, man, like, don't keep your eyes on what's happening in the world around you. Keep your eyes on Jesus. And now we felt it here in Newtown because, this kind of school shooting type thing came to our town. But I mean, honestly, we've been living in this era since 1999 at least in this country. Bobby and I lived in Denver. We had a church in Denver. You've heard the story. When Columbine happened, we had a church plant in that same suburb, Littleton, Colorado. And I can tell you, I don't know if it's because we live in both places, we've lived in both places, but what we've been through recently feels a lot like that first one. And what I mean by that is that first time with Columbine, it wasn't that there'd never been a school shooting anywhere before, because there had been one in Scotland before. And, the devil's the devil. There's nothing new under the sun. But something about Columbine felt like a transition. It felt like we were stepping into something different. And I got to tell you that I have that same feeling now. The same feeling that we're stepping into something different. Maybe it's an extension of what the enemy has been planning. But I think now, more than ever, we've got to be the people that keep our eyes on Jesus and don't get caught up in the darkness, but don't deny it either. Don't forget where we're at and what it's like. We spent all of last year talking about the 7 churches in Revelation and how dark the world is. I spent all last year doing what Mary was doing today, saying, hey, I wrote a book. God told me to write a book. Here, read this book, read this book. Why? Because it's going to help you be prepared for what's coming. Well, we didn't quite expect that to be so local and so sudden. But I've got a feeling, man, that we're stepping into something new. But the good news is this: we're more than equal to the task. We're more than able. We've got to go back into the Old Testament maybe and read some of those faith stories. We've been reading some New Testament faith stories. Maybe we should go back into the Old Testament, read some of those faith stories, like when they went into the Promised Land. And when 10 of the spies said, we can't go in there, there's giants in there. Because there were giants in there. There were things in the Promised Land, man, that most Christians today wouldn't even believe existed. If we really did a Bible study and got into what the Bible says was in the Promised Land, we don't even want to know. And that's why the 10 spies, man, they weren't just some faithless guys. They probably were the best 12 guys going. They were probably some of the toughest, baddest 12 guys of the children of Israel. And if 10 of them came back and said, man, we can't do it, you got to know that there was something in that land that caused them to respond that way. And they were called giants. They were some kind of weird hybrid thing that happened when the angels somehow interacted with the daughters of men. And that's why they came back and said, these guys are huge, these guys are monstrous, these guys are monsters, and we can't go in. But there were 2 guys that said something different, and those are the kind of guys we have to be. We need to not start next week, we need to start last week. And that's why I brought Adam up here. Man, great grace is available to you. Great grace is available to me and you. Verse 16 in this chapter is available to me and you. This is what God is saying to us in this church. This is possibly what God is saying, to the churches in this area. God may be saying this to our nation. It's time to rise up and have great grace, man. How do you get that? Well, the Bible says they got that because they had been with Jesus. What is grace? Man, that's the special empowerment that's on your life. God touches somebody and they're not the same person they used to be. And these people looked around and saw people like Peter from Galilee, kind of a backwoods type place, way out there somewhere in the country. And they said, man, these guys, they're not much in the flesh, but there's something inside. There's something in them. There's something in the spirit. There's a great grace upon them. Where's it come from? Being with Jesus. This is the hour. This is it. To rise up and say, you know what? All the things that we ever wanted to do. Some of us have been Christians a long time. Some of the things that people came to your church, prophets of God and people like that, and spoke over your life and said, this is what God's calling you to do. This is the hour to rise up and step into those things.